Well, you're using it the correct way, though. You're using it the way African Americans used to use it. Black people used to call woke like, you're awake. I'm woke. You can't sneak that stupid shit by me. Right. I'm woke.
Right.
You know, and then the fucking white people took it over and ruined it. Like a lot of things.
Exactly. Did we fuck that up too?
Not us. Not us. But the ones with blue hair.
Yeah. Now woke means a whole different. Whole different ball.
Well, now
game.
it's essentially a pejorative. They can't even use it in a positive way. You know, it's that's beaten down.
But I like it because it's kind of like you can just be triggered about anything now, so it's so convenient.
Yes.
You know, because I can really silence you if you start out intellectualizing me. I can just be like, dude, you're triggering me. You're hurting my feelings.
You're triggering me with information.
I kid you not. I've never talked about this. I'm probably going to lose half my audience. But
no,
I went to Harvard University for this thing, this longevity summit through a very good friend of mine. I won't mention his name because then I'll give away the event that I was at. I called my wife on day 2, and I was like, babe, I feel like I landed on Mars. I go, I got to get out of here. And she goes, what is going on? I said, I just listened to a panel of PhDs for 4 hours debate about whether or not a microaggression is something that could happen to you that you don't recognize, that was causing a micro trauma that the other person didn't realize they were doing, but it was still creating an unsafe environment.
I think there should be mandatory jiu-jitsu classes for those people. Mandatory jiu-jitsu.
My head was so twisted.
Here's your micro trauma.
Yeah, when they passed the microphone to me, I got so much trouble. And I won't say his last name, but Daniel, he's still mad at me right now because of this. They passed the microphone to me and they're like, do you have anything to add to the conversation? I go, this sounds like a bunch of people, this whole panel up here, you guys sound like you boarded a spaceship and literally left Mother Earth. Because I have no idea what you're talking about. You are talking about trying to identify something that you, by its very nature, say you don't know if you have it or you don't. So let's just admit that it's a ghost. So how are we going to – we can't measure it. We can't find it. We can't prove you have it. We can't prove you don't have it. So how are we going to treat it?
What's this culture of victimization
so
and the monetization? It's like there's status in victimization. You know, that's the thing. They've essentially made it like a virtue to be a victim. So you're looking for little things that have possibly. I believe there was a microaggression. I
think you know what? I think I felt it.
Possibly rolled his eyes.
I possibly rolled.
I mean, that is gonna haunt me. I need therapy now. I think he might have rolled his eyes.
And that's absolutely acceptable.
That is a microaggression, like maybe rolling your eyes. Like you say something to me and I go, okay. And then I leave. Oh my God, that was a microaggression.
Yeah,
what I just did going, okay.
But
that's
here's the cool
microaggression.
Thing, is you're kind of off the hook because if you didn't intentionally create the microaggression, I just perceived it as
Depends
a microaggression.
on who I am. If I'm a white heterosexual cis male,
then you're screwed.
I got problems.
Then you're screwed. So anyway, back to the food supply. We took a U-turn there for a second. What's really interesting is if you just take a very 30,000-foot view and you say, let's just look at the broad strokes on the blue zone research, right? There's no continuity between diets in these blue zones. So It's not keto, paleo, pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, raw food, Atkins. It's whole food, just what you were just saying.
Whole food and a lot of healthy lifestyle.
Whole food, well, the two things that were non-interchangeable were sense of purpose and community and activity until later in life. So you didn't have any of the blue zones where people didn't feel a sense of purpose and community in life. In fact, there were no such things as assisted care living facilities. The assisted care in those countries as mom and dad move back in with the kids until the day that they die. And there's a lot to be said for that because maybe grandma's only purpose is to go out and get vegetables for dinner that night, but she has a purpose.
And she's a part of the community.
And she's also
not locked up in a home with a bunch of people who don't really care about her.
Yeah. We knew something in the mortality space because I used to study mortality and mortality research. And we knew that if you wanted to cut somebody's life expectancy in half at any age, and I mean at any age, you put them in isolation. So as soon as you create isolation, you dramatically reduce, if not half, the life expectancy. Now, later in life, we would call this broken heart syndrome, caregiver syndrome, and these were actually very valid syndromes. So if we actually were doing the life expectancy on an elderly spouse who was still applying for insurance, or we were looking at what's called a second to die claim on life insurance policy, and one spouse had passed away, we would dramatically reduce the life expectancy of the second spouse. And the reason why that's important is I think that people don't realize that we are actually being isolated in plain sight, right? I mean, we are trying to create connection through our phones. We're trying to create connection through social media. And these are not human connections. In fact, if you look at the rates of depression, suicide, suicidal ideation, obesity, chronic mental illness, and I think we actually have a chronic lack of mental fitness, not necessarily a mental illness crisis in this country. And if you look at the skyrocketing rates of these conditions and how they are creeping into younger and younger and younger generations, you got 9-year-olds being treated for depression now. All right. So what's happening? What's happening is isolation in plain sight. We don't problem solve anymore. We don't have communities with our friends anymore. We actually don't build social connections. We've lost our connection to Mother Nature. That's why I like going out to my place in Colorado. It's probably like you like bow hunting. It's just nature. Old school connection to Mother Nature. And how freaking good do you feel?
Yeah, it's very, very good. I really wish I lived in nature. I'd really like to be living in the woods again.